Hello, you all right? And you know when you are watching the anime, and then that violent scene appears? Yeah, and if I tell you that in the manga these scenes went much further, do you believe it? So stay with me that today we will see the 7 times that the Dragon Ball manga was more violent than the anime. So, leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and then connect there. 7. Nappa vs Tenshinhan. Surely when you were watching this fight, you must have thought, this one must have hurt. Am I right? And from Tenshinhan's expression, indeed, he felt a lot of pain. Nappa simply cuts Teen's arm with just one blow, which despite being a strong scene, there were several censors in the animation to make this moment more friendly, like white blood, then it changes to yellow, as if it were sparks, and the region of the cut is all black, censoring the bleeding. Now, when we see this happening in the manga, we realize how violent it was. See that when Tenshinhan's arm is cut, he holds the part that remains and we see the blood fall, and his expression of pain here is much more consistent with someone who has just lost part of his arm. When Teen jumps to dodge Nappa, see how his arm drips blood, and when he's on the ground, look at his expression of pain, not to mention the blood marks on his face and body, making this scene much more cruel. Say it. 6. Vegeta vs Gerdo. Without a doubt, one of the most tragic endings for a villain was that of Gerdo, one of the members of the Ginyu Special Forces. When he uses his paralyzing technique on Gohan and Kuririn and was about to hit them, he ends up letting his guard down, and Vegeta takes the opportunity and simply rips off the villain's head with a key attack. And although the scene was epic, it was still censored. Now, when we look at the manga, Vegeta simply uses his own hand to rip off the villain's head in a scene 1,000 times better, and unlike animation, here we see blood, even if I'm purple, which is to be expected when a head separates from the body, right? 5. Dr. Jarrow vs Civil. Let's talk now about the Android saga. This is perhaps one of the cruelest deaths of this saga, not much in the anime, but in the manga, without a doubt. The anime scene compared to the manga are very similar, except for one detail, the way this old man died. In the animation, we see the android pull the old man out of the car holding his neck, but when it comes to eliminating him, the anime censors, and we only see him falling to the ground afterwards. Now, the manga showed the whole process. Jarrow holds the old man's neck, lifts it and begins to slowly crush it to the point of separating the head from the body in a terrifying scene, perhaps the darkest and heaviest moment of this saga. 4. 17 vs Dr. Jarrow. All the evil that Dr. Jarrow did to these androids was paid in a very violent scene, because when awakening the androids 17 and 18, the doctor also had a very tragic ending. The two scenes, anime versus manga, are very similar, except for one detail, which makes the manga much more frightening. Do you know when the doctor's head flies towards the Z-Warriors? The 17 soon after steps on top. In the anime this scene was censored, but in the manga, this is very brutal. 3. Cell vs 16. This is one of the most remembered scenes, not least because it was marked in the heart of every fan of the series, the 16 and the very successive attempt to convince Gohan to awaken his powers with his wise words, which I know you have already memorized, had, as I can say, a very sad ending. Because after making his speech to Gohan, his brutal death was the trigger that was missing for the Scion to release his powers. And that foot in the head of 16 gave Cell the Oscar for Best Villain. But the manga went further, because this here got pretty scary, my friends. 2. Gohan vs Cell's Juniors. After Gohan awakens his powers, he goes straight to face Cell's children. The elimination scenes in the anime were beautiful, epic, but not as heavy as in the manga. While in animation, each blow from Gohan makes these little creatures explode, as if they were bombs, the manga managed to make these deaths much more interesting. Because we see the real greatness and power of each blow of the Saiyajin, because it is possible to see head flying to one side, eye to another, arms and bodies separate, which expresses some of the anger that Gohan was at that moment. 01. Vidal vs Povich. This is undoubtedly one of the most controversial fights in the entire series, and I don't even need to explain much, right? Vidal did well and was in a position to win if his opponent was an ordinary person. Even Goku says that Povich was not a living being after receiving all those attacks and still standing. Vidal even thought he had eliminated the villain after this scene here.
What the? Povich's head is spun completely around!
However, Povich gets up and starts that torture session you already know. Vidal really suffered at the hands of Povich, but the manga was much more cruel to the girl. See that the first blow that Vidal receives from the villain already breaks his nose. The sequences of punches and kicks from Povich really cause greater damage compared to the anime. Even the knee in the face that she receives pulls out a tooth, something that in the anime we don't see happening. Not to mention the scene where the villain steps on Vidal's head, which in the manga is much more cruel. Guys, that was a video. Leave your like, subscribe to the channel, and share with that friend of yours who is passionate about Dragon Ball. Once again, thank you very much for staying here. A big hug spoke, thanks, and until the next video. See you later.